Kenya is tense as protests against President William Ruto's leadership escalates. Now his $150,000 church donation, despite banning such contributions, has sparked accusations of hypocrisy and corruption. Meanwhile, the military's warning against the Ruto Must Go slogan raises concern about democracy and free speech. This is The Conversation. I'm Darshan Usman. Let's talk. Now, Kenya's Chief of Defense Forces, General Charles Kahariri, and National Intelligence Service Director Noordin Haji have warned against the Ruto Must Go slogan, emphasizing that any call for leadership change must follow constitutional processes. While they assert that the military and intelligence agencies remain apolitical, their statements have sparked debate as opposition figures argue that security forces interfering in political discourse threatens democratic principles. The Ruto Must Go movement, fueled by economic frustrations and governance concerns, has gained traction, particularly among Kenya's youth. Where should the line be drawn between national stability and the people's right to demand change? I'm joined by Gakuna and Njima Castro, a political risk analyst and strategic consultant, AfricInsight Advisory Services in Nairobi. Thank you so much for joining us on The Conversation, Gakuna.
Thank you, Darshan, for having me this evening.
Well, I'm also joined by Emmanuel Toh. He is a reporter, Citizen TV in Nairobi as well. Thank you for joining us, Emmanuel. All right, so let me begin with, so I'm being told that Eric Kimutai, Vienna, Editor-in-Chief, Radio Amani in Kenya as well, has joined us. Thank you so much for joining, Eric. All right, so let's begin with Gakuna here. Now, yes. Gakuna, if you can hear me, General Kahariri emphasized that, the military does not take sides and is committed to defending the Constitution and the legitimately elected government. Now, how does this stance align with the military's recent public warnings against the Ruto Must Go protests?
Well, again, Darshan, thank you for having me this evening. And as political tensions rises with Ruto Must Go, and having General Kahariri and Noordin Haji coming in public and warning Kenyans who are actually calling or having a clarion call to say that Ruto must go, it simply means that the Ruto Must Go slogan or the campaign is gaining traction. And them coming from the barracks and then they are in public domain or they're making it public, the political sentiments. They are picking political sentiments, picking political slogans of people who really need William Ruto to go. And this campaign is against William Ruto re-election in 2027. It's not a campaign that the way they are putting it, it's a campaign, they're putting it as if it's a national security issue, it's a national security threat, but it's an issue of politics, it's an issue of political matter. There is no coup that is being planned by Kenyans. Kenyans have their democratic right to call it out a government that is not listening to their plight. They have the right to picket and to demonstrate. They have the right to have or have those political sentiments, political campaign, political slogans. So for them to get into public and warn Kenyans who are actually saying Ruto must go against other Kenyans who are actually also calling for William Ruto's election with the clarion call, Kumi Bila breaks, that really means that they are actually changing the political sentiment and making it look like it's a political or it's a security threat. There's no security threat in the Republic of Kenya. Kenyans have not at any time shown signs of breaching the constitution. They have not shown signs of heading into insecurity periods. But for them, as strategic advisors to the president,
yeah.
coming to public and warning Kenyans against Ruto Must Go slogan, that simply means that Kenyans are winning and politics as usual is losing.
All right, now still on you, Gakuna. Now this particular protest has to do with corruption, you know, and the economy and all that. Now, can you share with us your thoughts on the president donating such huge amount of money to a church? You know, despite him banning such, saying that, you know, it fuels corruption.
Yes, sure. Kenya is actually having a stagnating economy, if not a turning down economy. And when the president came and donating millions of money into a church in the name of Harabe and building the church, you know, this is the same strategy that he used during the 2022 campaign. It is the same strategy he used to campaign. So ditching out money and fundraising money in church, fundraising in the churches. And you remember very well in June 2024 last year. That's when the Gen Z came into the streets and demonstrated against corruption, rampant, ignorant of our constitutions, rampant corruption and bribery in our institutions and government agencies. So he simply and during the demonstration, he made a press conference and clarified that this fundraising, there will be no government official who will be fundraising the churches. He has actually even the movement of politicians and government officials in and out of the country again was slowed, but he really does not mean his word. Okay. He does not mean his word. He's now the person who is ramping up and down, walking out up and down with entourages across the country, with people surrounding him, dishing out money to the public so that people can actually not see him as an unpopular president, but again try to recreate himself, to recreate his political image, because at the end of the day, this whole tours in every region of this country is just about politics and managing the politics of 2027. And him reaching out millions of money into churches in Harabis, it is not by good faith, but only to manage the politics of 2027. He's just making some political comeback, and that's what he's trying to win again, the hope that has been already lost. But Kenyans are already agonizing. Kenyans are already at a dire heart that this government is a government that will not at any time deliver their promises and deliver whatever agenda they give to them.
All right, now let's hear from Emmanuel. I'm told that their audio is better now. Emmanuel, just looking at everything and what Gakuna has actually said, how does the movement, that's the Ruto Must Go movement, align or even conflict with Kenya's constitutional provisions on freedom of expression and assembly?
Well, this is quite a very dicey situation because on June 25th, 2024, that is last year, when the Gen Zs stormed Parliament and actually instituted some of the changes that we are currently witnessing in Kenya, the president said the people who planned that were treasonous. And this has not been, that was the beginning of the Ruto Must Go chance, and we have seen this graduate with time. And during that time, we also saw the military being deployed on the streets of Nairobi and across the country to try and bring some sort of sanity. And but that has not been really achieved by the government. And the sentiments we are having right now, that the military is being used to try to get into politics, and the comments by General Kahariri and the NIS Director General have also been added again this week. Just on Tuesday this week, the Inspector General of Police here in Kenya was seen in a political rally where the president is visiting the Mount Kenya region, which really supported him almost to a man in the 2022 general election. But his fortunes have been dwindling in that region. But this is it is really a calamitous period for the government, because As my colleague has just mentioned, the popularity ratings have really gone down, and the government is trying to resuscitate itself from that point. But of course, the two or the three key security officers are not barred from speaking about any issue in the country, but for them to wade into the political issues is really what has brought a lot of concern, because, as you've mentioned, they are apolitical and they are not supposed to be involved in such matters. But as they say, this process must also, the Ruto must go must be done according to the Constitution, which is through election, through the democratically laid down processes. So it's really here and there situation, but that has been the case here in Kenya. It is politics every day, and the situation is just mutating every now and then.
All right, Emmanuel, you actually mentioned, the director of NIS, Director General of NIS, that's Haji. He stated that the NIS operates within legal boundaries and does not engage in abductions. Yet, there have been allegations of extrajudicial arrests. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, that conversation is still there, and the jury is still out there, and there will always be an explanation from the government about these issues. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights reports that about 60 people died during the Gen Z demonstrations period, and also hundreds of other Kenyans are still missing. And while they say that, there's still so much that the government needs to explain. Just this week, a CS, a cabinet secretary in President Ruto's government, was fired after he raised some concerns about abduction. And actually, his son, we're talking about the CS, the former cabinet secretary for public service, Justin Muturi, his son was actually abducted, and he accused the NIS of being part and parcel of that process. And there's so very few answers that the government can provide to give a way forward about this. The president recently mentioned that he will try and end it, but we still see those activities happening. So I don't see any end in sight for it, but it is really a problem for the government.
So now
and even the people here.
Still talking about, the alleged abductions, let's talk to you, Eric, about this. While you share your thoughts, do you know if the agency has addressed these allegations to ensure accountability within its ranks? All right, so I'm told that Eric is not with us. Now let's pass the question to you, Gakuna.
So, well, just last week, the president actually got into public and said that he has dismantled the group, the elite squad that was doing these abductions and all manners of malicious killings of the Kenyans. And he said that this killer police squad, he has disbanded it. But the big question is whether the Kenyans really will trust the word that the president is giving onto them, because every word that the president has given to Kenyans has not yet been met. And having so many cases of young people who have been maimed, so many young people who have been killed, so many young people who have been abducted. Even today, families are still yet to know where their loved ones are still at. It's a matter of a question, and that's what exactly Kenyans are calling it out, because it's an issue that Kenyans are feeling very insecure with this regime, because once we have such a killer squad, and it's the police force that should be actually protecting and safeguarding lives and properties of people, being the sole mandate of the government to protect life and the properties of its own citizen. It is very, very, very disheartening and very worrying for every Kenyan who is against this regime. But for me, I would ask the government and also ask Kenyans that this government should not be led to actually continue disarming citizens by threatening them to stop the cause that they are actually engaging. The citizenry cause, the patriotic cause that Kenyans are engaging should move on, should continue, because we cannot let the politicians or the president or the state actually to silence Kenyans, to silence human rights defenders, to silence activists in the name of they are threatening national security issues, or they are threatening their threat to national security issues. This is our country. The Kenyan Constitution guarantees every Kenyan the right to picket, the right to protest, and the right to express themselves in a manner that they do not infringe the right of their colleague or their other citizens. So it is high time that also the government should act to actually find out where these young people they are. These people have been abducted. Some of the young families who are still their loved ones are still in the morgues because they haven't been able actually to even raise the funds to bury their loved ones. So the government has a sole duty also to come in, troop in, and help and assist these families to have their loved one and unite with their loved ones.
Okay. Now, back to you, Emmanuel. Now, earlier you did talk about, how the Gen Zs came out last year to protest. And we know that that particular demographic, has been at the forefront of recent protests, especially that of the Finance Bill 2024, which you stated. Now, looking at the factors that have contributed to this generation's heightened political activism, how will this shape Kenya's political landscape in the coming years?
Well, that question has actually been the talk of town, because these are people who are now politically active. You'll see them on TikTok, you'll see them on social media, just putting the government to task. And recently, the electoral body here in Kenya, it is called the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, said that in the next election, that is in 2027, there will be 5.7 million new registered voters. And a big chunk of these are normally the youth. And so if the youth, who are the Gen Zs, who led the protest, are going to be participating in the next election, that will be a very sizable constituency that is going to vote in the next election, which is going to really be a very decisive voting bloc. I remember the past election, the 2022 election, the former, rather, I don't know whether he's still the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, who is now a part of the government in a way, lost by 233,000 votes only. That is a fraction of the new voters that are going to come in the 2027 election. That means that if anybody is going to get, even if it is just a quarter of the vote from the new voters who are going to be the Gen Zs or the youth who will have turned 18, they will be home and dry in the election. And there's a lot of scramble and rush to really get these voters to the corner of each contestant. And the president, who really is really struggling to get to the vote of the youth because they accuse him of not listening to him, is really trying harder to ensure that he can get some other constituencies or other voting blocks to replace the votes, or even come close to having them replace the votes that he might have lost due to his decisions so far.
Okay. Now let's hear from Erica. Erica, thank you for reconnecting with us. Now, after everything that Gakuna and Emmanuel has actually said, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And, considering the Ruto Must Go movement, which has been largely driven by youth, right? Utilizing social media, to mobilize these young people. Yet we see Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen warning the youth against misusing social media, suggesting that it could jeopardize political stability. Now, I want to know, in a digital age, where does the government draw the line between free expression and actions deemed harmful to national stability?
Mostly on rights and the democracy exists as per the provision of the Constitution where most of us
Eric,
use to convey information. And
hello, Eric. Your network is really, really poor, but we'll try to reconnect with you nevertheless. Let me move that question to you, Gakuna, because just like Emmanuel has actually said, platforms like TikTok and Twitter, played pivotal roles in mobilizing, the protest with hashtags such as Occupy Parliament, garnering millions of mentions. So where does the government draw the line between free expression and also actions deemed harmful to national stability?
Yeah, sure. Just recently also, Kipchumba Murkomen, the Cabinet Secretary Interior, also warned Kenyans against the Ruto Must Go or people against the government agenda. But again, we are having a group or a population of young people who are very vibrant and who are very open and willing to join the political space. So they are not willing to join the political space by just giving themselves to vie. They're also giving themselves to actually put into account this government. You remember very well that the Kenya now we are having a mongrel kind of a government where Raila Odinga, the chief opposition, has joined the government, or President Ruto has joined the opposition. So the mongrel kind of a government that William Ruto and Raila Odinga have actually joined in the name of a broad-based government has left a big space of accountability and of accountability to the government, putting in mind that the president has overtaken or overridden the parliament that should play the key role of oversighting the government. So the Gen Zs or the young people have risen to the occasion. They have come actually to take the role of oversighting and actually putting into account the president, the executive, and also the members of parliament. And for them, they are not only getting into the streets, but also mobilizing themselves, passing campaign messages like the hashtag Ruto Must Go through the social media. Facebook, TikTok has been the most, and TweetX has been the most used platforms for Gen Zs to communicate, for Gen Zs to actually mobilize each other, to also mobilize resources so that they can aid in the operationalization and also communication of the political messaging. So there's a very thin line of Kenyans or the government trying to threaten, to caution Kenyans by trying to threaten. And actually, I remember very well there was a time they had threatened actually also to maim the social media or usage of social media into the country, which brought a very, very hard debate into this republic. So the government must respect the freedom of expression that have been enshrined into our constitution. They have to respect the freedom of expression that have also been enshrined into the UN Charter. So and actually in the international phase, freedom of expression has been one of the freedoms that have been enshrined and given so much effort until to date, that government cannot be left to slide into autocracy. They cannot be left to slide into dictatorium. So the thing, because of Gen Z being so active politically, and there are people that they are not. These are people who have given themselves themselves to the political space. They have nothing to lose in the political space. For them, they are here even criticizing, challenging their parents, that it is you parents, it is you, our grand parents, that you have made us to get to this point. So we are here to clean a system. We are here to cleanse an administration. And cleansing this administration, it is by creating a way and getting head to head, an eye to eye with the government and turning them off to areas where we think that this government is not serving the interests of the people, turning them off when they do not actually protect and follow the rule of law, turning off when they must squander and corrupt public resources, turning off when they embezzle and take bribes across the government agencies and institutions. This is why the Gen Z have risen, and because they have overridden the political communication of the government, they have overridden the government agendas, because they have come out very vibrant in communicating against the government.
Let's hear from Emmanuel. You know, it's still in line with what you've said. You know, it only shows that this protest, you know, have transcended traditional ethnic divisions and has united citizens across, you know, different and various backgrounds. So what does this indicate, you know, about the current state, you know, of national unity in Kenya? Let's hear from Emmanuel.
Well, as Gakuna has just explained very passionately, we are really witnessing a new dispensation in Kenya where the Gen Zs are leading the way. And as you know, as a fellow colleague journalist, the role of the media is to be the watchdog, which is also partly the role of parliament. But I have to admit that the Gen Zs are doing exactly that, and we are sometimes following in their footsteps when it gets to some stories, because they're always active on social media and all that, and they have really brought the sense of togetherness in the country where everybody is now involved, very much involved. There's a lot of political awareness, including even in the rural areas where you might not really expect a lot of political knowledge or what is happening, because many people before the Gen Z period, the Gen Z Thunderbolt, were actually very dormant in terms of being politically involved. And we are seeing this now changing. We are seeing the narrative changing, and we hope that the momentum will be kept, because the duty of a country is on the shoulders of everybody. And at times, the media is the one which is playing that role of leading the way. But at some point, we are now even having a backseat, because these people, the Gen Zs, the people themselves, the ones who voted for the government and those who never voted, are now more aware of what is happening. So there's really a lot that is in store for Kenya and even Africa, I dare to say.
All right, now still on you, Emmanuel. In December 2024, you know, while the protest was on, police used tear gas to disperse protesters, you know, demonstrating against alleged abductions of government critics. Now, do you know if there are any measures in place already to ensure the right to peaceful assembly at the moment?
Well, the right to peaceful assembly or to demonstration is enshrined in the Constitution in the first place. So it is just about implementing this. But the police have a way of cutting across the lines by saying that there's a public order law that says that when you do this, you have to be peaceful and unarmed and mostly the demonstrators will be there, because I've covered these demonstrations even before the Gen Zs came into the picture. And you will always witness these situations happening, and you can always see that the police sometimes are the ones who lead to the violence that we see in the demonstrations, because you will see protesters walking very peacefully, chanting their songs, and then you hear a tear gas canister has been dropped there, or some bullets have even been used, live ones, and we have actually seen people getting injured in the process, including myself when I was covering the demonstrations. But this right to peaceful assembly and to demonstrate is enshrined in the Constitution, provided those who are demonstrating are peaceful. And it is going to be something that we are going to watch, because there isn't a MOU between the president and the former prime minister, who was actively in the opposition at some point, was to really enshrine these right of assembly, peaceful assembly, and even demarcating areas where people can demonstrate and show their dissatisfaction or satisfaction with the government. And I think it is work in progress.
All right. Now, with that, I think we'll actually go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll definitely continue with this discussion. Emmanuel and Gakuna, do stay with us. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us on the conversation. So today we're discussing Kenya and the right to peaceful protest. And we've had Gakuna and Emmanuel with us speaking on this. Thank you for staying with us, gentlemen. Now let me come back to you, Gakuna. Now, critics have actually argued that, the recent political pact, between the ruling party and the main opposition could actually stifle dissent. How does the government, respond to concerns, about the potential erosion of democratic checks and balances?
Just immediately after the elections, we have the opposition coming to the streets led by Raila Odinga, and they were against this government, they were against the policies that the government was making, and especially policies to do, economic policies to do with the finance bills of 2023 and the 2024 finance bill that led the agencies into the streets. And for him to actually extend his hand to Raila Odinga was to legitimize his government, because what William Ruto has been facing, the biggest challenge is been facing it to with his legitimacy, because as you know, the margin that both candidates had was around 200,000 votes, which is a very close margin. They're looking at the size and the people that actually came to vote. It has been a very small margin. And then the government incapacity to deliver to the promises that they gave to the people. So the people have turned also against the government, and he could not actually been able to manage. He could not manage the expectation of Kenyans at the end, and also manage the opposition. So the first tactic or the only tactic left for him was to get to Raila Odinga so that they can have a broad-based government, and the opposition try to manage the government. You can see how the opposition actually entrenched themselves into the government to the extent of actually getting a 40 or 50% share of this government. So the joint broad-based government of President William Ruto and the chief opposition Raila Odinga actually has threatened the democracy and has actually threatened the principle of accountability, that principle of transparency into this government, and that's why it is now the citizens who have taken that charge actually to actually put into account their own government, put into account their own elected leaders, and because of this overriding government communication with the fires and vibrant communication against this government, the only tactic left also for them now, for the government, is to threaten and also change and turn the political issues into matters of national security. That's why now they are actually bringing the militaries to intimidate, bringing the intelligence to intimidate, and the National Police Service to intimidate Kenyans, so that Kenyans can shift. They can shift now from the political sentiment against the government, and then feel threatened or feel threatening the national security. So it is a matter of government and also the people, or government as the opposition, respecting the voice of the people, respecting the power of the people, and respecting the rule of law and the constitution of Kenya.
All right, now, Emmanuel, the movement, that's the Ruto Must Go movement, has persisted despite government warnings. What does this resilience suggest?
Well, it shows that people are tired. The populace is really waiting for a chance for an election to really show their anger towards the powers that be. But really, it is almost 3 years or 2.5 years to the next election, and these temperatures have been rising all along. But normally in Kenya, it is always the last 6 months, or actually the last 3 months, that decide the fate of a country in terms of who is going to win or lose, because it is always a race down to the wire for the candidates that are contesting. But these Ruto Must Go chants have actually gone over and beyond the normal activities that many people expect that politics will be playing. And we've seen these chants in bars, we've seen them in football matches. Recently, when Kenya was playing Gabon here in Nairobi, we saw some youth chanting the same. We have seen the youth also do the chants even in their social places. And really, it is a headache for the government. And to give credit to probably the government still has some time to try and right its wrongs, or rather get in the good books with the youth who are leading these chants. But so far, it's been about from July to now, that is 5 months plus about 4. So it's almost 9 months of non-stop Ruto Must Go, which started slightly before the finance bill was tabled in June. And so we expect that probably with the momentum that is still building up, with the former deputy president who was impeached, that is Rigathi Gachagua being the key leader in the opposition now, from government to opposition, we're expecting that probably this movement will continue because the former deputy president now says his sole duty is to ensure that President Ruto is a one-term president, but we wait to see.
We'll wait to see indeed. Let's hear Gakuna's thoughts on, this, what it says about, the resilience, because we know that despite the government persistent, saying that they should stop the movement and everything, the movement has also persisted. Please go ahead and share with us.
Actually, for the government actually to say that they should stop on the call for Ruto Must Go, and this Ruto Must Go is as a result of government not acting to the will of the people, and the government actually going against their own voice and their own word. So government not keeping their word, of course, Kenyans have been frustrated. Kenyans have actually shown resilience that, we have been very quiet to this government. As much as the government still asking some more time, it has been now 2.5 years since this government got into government, or they were sworn into State House. and there is nothing tangible that Kenyans should actually, or this government should is showing. But what this government can only now proclaim is how they have actually gotten into the Kenyan pay slips, double taxations. They have actually destabilized and every sector of our economy. We're looking at sectors like education. The change of the models that have made students, even some of the students cannot even afford to go to school from university. The school capitation of our secondary institutions. This capitation is not disbursed to the institutions. Help loans, they are not given to students. You look at our health system from a shift from NHIF to SHA, that is now the authority that is administering the insurance of Kenyans. It is not very effective and efficient as the former model or program was. And the whole this question that the government is trying to push and pull with Kenyans, because Kenyans are asking about pertinent issues about their social issues, about their economic issues, about their security issues. But the government is not taking it kindly. They are actually looking at these people who are actually criticizing the government, because Kenyans are asking these pertinent issues. So as Kenyans continue, Kenyans will persist, and I request them to persist. I insist them they should persist with this Ruto Must Go, because that is the only language that this government is hearing. And for them now coming in public responding to such sentiment, it means that they have had enough. And of course, they are unable to act. They do not know the next step for them to actually challenge this slogan. And now the government communication system is also communicating their political slogan of Kumi Bila Breaks. So it is Kumi Bila Breaks against Ruto Must Go. That's my take on this issue of Ruto Must Go.
All right. Now, Emmanuel, Kenya's stability is crucial for East Africa as a whole. Do you think that there's a possibility for escalating tensions to spill over into regional instability, affecting trade, diplomatic relations, and the likes with neighbors like Uganda and Tanzania? Is there a possibility?
Well, so far, I think it is still being contained. It is within the Kenya's borders. And I think we're always in this political mood in Kenya, and which is not the case with the rest of the countries, I believe, here in East Africa. But normally we have seen these tensions rise to some levels where some countries actually stop the people from coming to Kenya, because at some point when there is violence, when there are chaos, when there is running battles across, it becomes a bit of a challenge for some of those visitors to come to Kenya. And we saw this even during at the height of the Gen Z demonstrations, where some tourists were not coming to Kenya, some from neighboring countries, some countries actually cutting ties with Kenya in terms of the diplomatic relations. And we are seeing these now escalating slowly by slowly, but we hope that the levels are within the optimum levels that we are used to here in Kenya. But as my colleague has just mentioned, it is not about the government saying the Ruto Must Go chant should stop. It is about doing something about the cause of these Ruto Must Go chants. And I think the government is probably having a machinery that is listening. They're currently reconstituting the government again, and I hope the people they bring on board will help with the communication.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hear from Gakuna, as well, if you feel that the escalations, the escalating tensions could spill over to neighboring countries like Uganda, Tanzania, and affect trade and diplomatic relations.
Well, at the moment, they have been contained to Kenya, but we have scenarios where these escalations into Kenya have actually been commented in countries, our neighboring countries, like Tanzania and Uganda. Remember very well, the opposition leader of Uganda was abducted here in Kenya and given back to the Ugandan authority. You know, Kenyans came out and criticized this act. And the same happened with a tough critic, a stiff critic of Tanzanian government also was abducted here in Kenya. So it has also spilled down to our neighboring countries, but in a very steady manner, in a very soft manner. But as Tanzania is heading to elections, as well as Uganda, they're heading to elections, and with these fires, challenging the current regimes in all the countries within the East African community. So it's a matter of let's wait and see. We see how the Gen Zs are shaping the diplomatic moves, how they are shaping the bilateral trades and how they are shaping the political agendas and the political space of these countries. I can tell you in Uganda, there's also the same happening of young people led by Bobby Wine coming out and challenging the government of Kaguta Museveni. The same thing in Tanzania. The young lady that was abducted here is a Gen Z challenging the government of Mama Suluhu Hassan. So it is just about time, and the whole region will be sparked with the Gen Zs shaping in their own way, in their small or large way, bigger way, shaping the political space. So Gen Zs also are dictating how the diplomacy is being carried out. Nowadays, diplomacy is not just in the boardroom, but also in the social media. Kenyans have really shown how they are shaping diplomacy through the social media, and it's taking the right trajectory. It is taking traction, and I repeat it again. It's just about time, and the political space of our countries and of our region will take shape through the Gen Z's call.
All right. Now, while we wind down, let's have your final thoughts and what you see as the most viable path forward for resolving these tensions. This is for Emmanuel. I'm asking, the path forward for resolving these tensions, and I mean without eroding democratic freedoms.
Well, I think the first step is to have a conversation about the real issues, the issues that are affecting the youth, the issues that are causing the Ruto Must Go chants. And the government knows where the problem is. The issue of abduction, the issue of missing persons, the issue of extrajudicial killings of government critics. We've seen some of them taken outside their houses immediately after they send their tweets or their messages on X, or after putting up some comments about the government, against the government. And the government needs to be to really give space for expression, freedom of expression. We have seen, to the credit of the government already, if I could just mention that as one of them, the numbers of the people being abducted has really gone down compared to what we witnessed in December and a few months after, during and after the Gen Z-led protests. And the government needs to really follow that path of trying to listen, just listen. That's the whole point. Listen to what is causing these issues. And probably if the government will do that, probably things will get better. But I don't see a lot of change happening, although there's still time. But even after the government concedes to some of these demands by the Gen Zs, it seems they still want the whole government out. They still want to drain the whole swamp, and we can only wait and see whether the government will have a conversation, as you were having in this show, on these matters.
Okay. Now, for you feel dialogue is the way out. Now, let's hear from you, Gakuna, briefly, your final thoughts on this.
The whole solution is not actually with William Ruto joining hands with Raila Odinga, because the same will happen again and again. And this tactic of Raila Odinga joining the government, it has been there, of course, and we expected. And William Ruto was not a different president from other presidents. He would not govern this government alone without actually extending the hand. But the real solution will become by them listening to the voice of Kenya, respecting the constitution, respecting the sole and legitimate power of the people. And again, they should shield their ignorance and arrogance to Kenyans, because once they take it as if the regime or the government is in competition with the people, they're actually escalating, they're actually sparking Kenyans into engaging with them politically. And as of this time, the government has become unpopular, and Kenyans are actually looking for a dire change of this government. So it is up to them to see how they can deal with it, because already people are tired. People are just waiting for a chance to have an election. And I can tell you, as my colleague had earlier mentioned, that it is just a chance of an election, and Kenyans would actually vote this government out. So how he will manage to win the hope, to win the spirit, and to win the trust of Kenyans again, it is up to him. And it is up to him to deliver to Kenyans and to ensure that he keeps to his one. And also he gets people who will be able to help him achieve his agenda to Kenyans.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time and also for your thoughts and insights on this issue. Gakuna and Njima Castro, political risk analyst and strategic consultant, AfricInsight Advisory Services, and Eric Kimutai Vienna, editor-in-chief, Radio Amani, all from Kenya. We appreciate you for your time.
Thank you very much for having us.
We also had Emmanuel Tu, reporter, Citizen TV from Kenya as well. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. And with that, with that, we conclude today's episode of The Conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in to another week of thought-provoking discussions.